Hi guys, welcome to the Kung Fu Mama Show. Okay, so today we have very, very, very awesome guests today, and they are also part of our very own birth class, our birth class family now, I feel. So all of our kids are almost 2 years old. Here, Lauren and Skye, they have a 21-month-old baby, so just 3 months younger than Kali, which is amazing. And so they are a same-sex couple, and Lauren here is a recent graduate, MBA graduate. They've been in Taiwan for 11 years. And then Skye here is an educator here in Taiwan, and he's also a drag king. And we're going to talk today about their journeys as a same-sex couple here in Taiwan. And yeah, so tell us a bit about why you're in Taiwan and what have you guys been doing here?
All right, well...
that one's your fault.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I'm the reason we're here. When I was going to university, I was studying to become an English educator, second language specifically. And when they said, okay, the chances of you getting a job in Canada are not particularly good unless you've got really, really good grades or unless you already have experience. So I was like, well, eventually I want to be teaching back in Canada, so how do I get experience? They said, go west. Really, really west. I'm on the west coast of Canada, so go to Asia. And so I was like, well, okay, I'll go to Asia. So I thought, I've got 5 years of Japanese under my belt, I'll go to Japan. And that was the working plan for a while until I got a Taiwanese language exchange partner who told me all about Taiwan. She showed me pictures. She told me about the food.
Pictures of food.
Yeah, that was one of the big ones. And the scenery as well, because this country is bloody breathtaking. And eventually I was like, well, I do want to learn Chinese, but I don't really want to go to China. Right. So, Taiwan?
Well, it was 11 years ago. China was much farther off the radar of normal places, like kind of standard places where you would go and teach. At the time, our choices were really Japan, Taiwan, and Korea, because those were the three countries that were kind of pushing the hardest for English teachers to come over and teach, particularly cram school style teaching.
And Japan was too expensive. And Korea doesn't exactly have a great track record for LGBT issues. So
plus, we didn't speak Korean, and neither one of us was particularly interested in learning Korean at the time.
Yeah. So we decided, well, why not Taiwan? So, yeah, that's why
Wonderful.
we ended up here.
So how is that working out for you? Now that you're here, are you so glad that you chose Taiwan?
Oh, my goodness, yes. I mean...
It's been almost 11 years, so we definitely still like it. Yeah.
We thought we were only going to come for maybe 1 or 2 years.
My mom keeps saying it's the longest 2 years she's ever experienced.
Because we just haven't gone back. Like, we've been back to visit, but we haven't even really thought about moving back. At least not really, not yet.
We got really close, and then COVID. We were thinking very seriously about moving back after I finished my MBA in the summer of 2020. And we had firm plans in place. Like, I was sorting through things in the house. We were drinking down the liquor cabinet. like we were making plans into what we were going to do. And then COVID.
Right. I think that changed a lot of people's plans.
Yeah. And I'm actually kind of pleased in the long run that we decided to stay, because it was heartbreaking, the idea of going back. We just wanted to have Moira be around family. That was the biggest reason, was to have her be around my parents, your mom, our siblings,
her great-grandparent.
Yeah, the one she has left.
Right. But then I guess because you guys can't really travel and it's not exactly safe and it's not exactly... It's a bit divided at the moment. And I suppose a bit dangerous.
We'd be going back to the States too, probably.
Yeah, I'm American. Skye's Canadian, but I'm American, so we'd have to pick between those two as well.
And when Moira's American, it's probably safer. Well, I don't even know anymore.
One of the biggest reasons we were going to go back to the States was that I would probably have an easier chance of getting a job that would pay enough for us to deal with the transition of one of us getting landed immigrancy in the other country, because it takes a while, and neither one of us actually has that yet. Skye has no green card, and I don't have residency for Canada.
Right. That's also another issue.
1 month before we moved to Taiwan, so we didn't bother with visas there.
Right. But then here you're all set up already, and you've been here.
Yeah, we have permanent residency here and open work permits, and we have those in our own right. Neither one of us got it through the other person.
Yeah, so we're cool. Yeah.
So whenever we decide to leave Taiwan, if we
ever leave Taiwan,
we'll have to deal with the visa issue of all of that because we've just never bothered with it because it hasn't been necessary. And neither country really wants to help you process that unless you're planning on moving there. So it's, you don't really do it out of country and say, someday we'll move to Canada. Can I get like whatever the Canadian green card permanent residency is? Can I get that now and just like maybe use it someday? They won't do that.
So maybe actually we could talk a bit about, what about Mora? So she's a Taiwanese citizen.
No.
She's
Taiwan
not a
does not give citizenship just if you're born here. It actually, you have to have at least one Taiwanese parent in order to get Taiwanese citizenship.
Okay, so that's complicated. So she's been born here. So as a same-sex couple, how do you guys deal with the paperwork situation for that?
We got really lucky. The doctor that we went through had a lesbian couple come to them before.
Important point. Moira was born about a month before
marriage was
any
legalized.
kind of same-sex relationships were recognized in Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so she actually was born
at the cusp.
just before that happened.
Yeah, it was that month.
So I don't know what's happened in the meantime since then, but I know that before that, technically, we weren't supposed to have a birth certificate with both of us on it.
Because we weren't legally married.
In Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, but the clinic that we went through stated that their policy was that if you have a legal marriage in a country that recognizes that marriage and you have a marriage certificate, they would put you both on that certificate, on the birth certificate, because that would be important going back to that country to show that that this was the parents at the time. So our clinic was willing to have us both on that birth certificate so long as we brought in our marriage certificate.
Yeah.
Which is the only reason why Skye is able to be on Moira's report of birth abroad, consular report of birth abroad document, which is essentially the American document that stands in place of a birth certificate for the United States. It states that she is a legal
she wasn't born
American.
In the States, yeah.
Okay, right. So then, but in her Taiwan birth certificate, she is still... Oh, in her Taiwan birth certificate, she's a U.S. citizen.
She's not anything. Birth certificates don't state your nationality. They just state that you're born.
Okay, so it just states that you're born, and then you have to go to the U.S. consulate to say, she was born.
Yeah, so we went to the American Institute. So we had to go to the American Institute to do the American piece of it. We had to go to Taiwanese immigration to get her visa for Taiwan.
She needs an ARC.
Because she needs her ARC.
Right.
We had to go to the Canadian Trade Office to do the Canadian piece of it.
Oh my gosh, that's so complicated.
The Taiwanese one, the Taiwanese one had to be done within 30 days of her birth.
Okay.
The American one didn't have to be done as quickly, but she was born in May, and I was doing a study exchange starting the end of August in Denmark.
Yeah.
So I had to get that done promptly so that we could get a passport so she could leave the country and come back.
Oh my gosh.
So we had to have all of that paperwork done.
Complicated.
Before August.
Yeah. But actually,
because I had to get her Danish visa. So I had to get it done as soon as possible, and she had to have a passport so that I could apply for a Danish visa for her so that we could go to Denmark.
Oh my gosh, that's so complicated. But in terms of having your paperwork, if you were just you just missed the cusp. Mm-hmm. So for other couples that had that experience, so would there be a way that they can get both parents on the birth certificate?
I don't know what the new laws are and how they're doing that.
But now it should be fine because you were already at the cusp of that.
In theory, yes, but I've not actually looked into how they're doing things like births and such and the creation of same-sex families.
I see.
There's one thing that is to be noted is that I don't think still that you're able to do. Actually, I don't know.
As far as I know, adoption is still not legal.
No, adoption definitely isn't
you
legal.
can't.
That's not even a question.
So same-sex adoption is not legal in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was one thing that was like a stipulation. It's like, fine, we'll give you marriage, but you can't adopt children. still very conservative that way.
Which makes it very difficult if you are a same-sex
couple
male, especially a same-sex male couple, because you can't carry your own children. So you either have to so basically you have to find a surrogate, because you can't adopt.
Now, my other question is, if, I don't remember, you might know this better than I do, if you are a same-sex couple and you are married, technically you're married, so therefore you have the right to artificial insemination, but do they do that for same-sex couples?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I know that so we can talk about this. I know we're going to talk about how Moira was conceived.
Yes, I mean, I'd love to hear about, how Moira was conceived. I'm sure a lot of people have this question.
So I'm really type A. I'm
type A, not type A.
Yes. I'm that too. I'm that too.
Blood type or type A as in
both.
Type A personality.
Personality. Yeah. Okay, type A. Okay. All right.
My blood type is A+, and I get an A+ in paperwork. So I'm a very type A kind of personality, which is why all of her paperwork did get done in time and smoothly. And I died of stress that month.
Right. So for non-type A same-sex couples, they might not be as lucky as you guys to get all your stuff done before you have to go.
Do your research
to Denmark
and know what
and everything.
You have to do long before you need to do it.
But you guys were married in Canada.
We've been married. We got married a month before we came to Taiwan. So we got married in Canada, so we had a legal marriage certificate back in 2010.
Oh, okay. So that's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Okay, great. But then that same-sex marriage certificate was never recognized in Taiwan until the one after Moira was born.
Yeah.
It also wasn't recognized in the States when we were married. That's why we were married in Canada.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Well, and your family's in Canada.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but it wasn't an option for us. We couldn't be married in the United States because it was.
We had another
2-3 years, something like that, before it actually went through the Supreme Court. It went through some of the states, but it hadn't gone through the Supreme Court for a while.
Yeah, I remember California got it like the month that we arrived.
Yeah.
But the rest of the country didn't follow for another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it was a big wait.
Yeah.
Right.
So when we were looking at how, we decided that we wanted to have a kid, and we were looking at what the options were, and we were trying to figure out how to go about doing that. One of the avenues that I went down was trying to see whether I could be artificially inseminated here in Taiwan, because that would make things very easy comparatively speaking.
Yeah. And the medical is great here.
Yeah, the medical system is great. Yeah. We have health insurance, and I got in touch with a group here that specifically worked with foreigners coming to Taiwan. I think because, again, good medical and not as expensive. And they responded to me that essentially the Taiwanese law was that the only way you can go through any kind of artificial insemination is if you're married. And at the time, we weren't considered married, so they did not work with same-sex couples because they couldn't legally.
Flat out.
And that just closed the door on that. That was not an option for us here.
Wow. Okay.
So so that wasn't a choice. And when we decided that, okay, what we were going to do instead was to go back to Canada, because we had a 2-month vacation in Canada, or that we could take in Canada because I was a teacher at the time as well.
Yeah.
So we could do that instead, teacher/student. I got in touch with the Canadian health authorities there. Again, an insemination.
A-type.
All the emails. So many emails. I got in touch with a fertility clinic there, and they said, well, the only way that we can work with you is if A, you are being inseminated by your partner, so you're using your partner's sperm, or B, you have you're being inseminated by a legal donor in Canada. An
anonymous legal donor.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be anonymous. No? It just had to be a legal donor, somebody who was actually registered as a sperm donor in Canada. Right. And
how would that work if you're inseminated by your partner?
So that wouldn't be necessary because they would collect a sample on site. So they would take a sample from your partner on site, So if like you were a heterosexual couple and you're just having like IVF or something done.
Be for a heterosexual couple.
Yeah, in that case.
Or if you were going to use a donor. And you were going to, it has to be a legal donor in Canada.
Right. Okay.
So those were the only two options. And our donor was neither of those.
Oh, so you actually handpicked somebody.
Yes. We were lucky enough that when we approached him, my brother said yes. So my brother is the donor, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so...
But does he have to go through, like, legal paperwork to get that all... Like, how does that work?
After Moira was born, we ended up having a bunch of paperwork done up by a lawyer to completely exonerate him of all rights and responsibilities toward Moira. So, like, it's his sperm, absolutely. She shares his DNA, which is really nice for me because the two of us look very similar. So one day, she's probably going to have my features as well, which makes me very happy.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
But not your eyes, which was surprising.
Yeah, we were shocked that she didn't get my eyes. They're like, they run hard in my family, but apparently so do hers. So, so after he said yes and after we go through the thing that we're going to talk about here, we did have paperwork done up because we wanted to keep both sides of that completely safe and everything on the table, nothing left in the air at all that could potentially cause conflict later on in life.
It meant that they couldn't, he's married, that they couldn't try to state claims to her, but also that we couldn't, if something happened, just dump her on them.
Or ask something
one way or the other.
Yeah.
We're very much of the approach legally that you should always be in a position so that if somebody has some kind of horrible brain trauma and it completely
changes them,
rewrites a piece of your personality, that the other person is essentially safe from that. I have friends who've had horrible brain trauma and it has not rewritten their personalities, but it's always a possibility that something happens.
Yeah, just in case.
I'd much rather have an in case beforehand rather than have to respond to something you never took into account.
Right. Yeah, cover all the bases.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Yeah, and then we don't have to worry about anything about that later on. There won't be any kind of like built up stress in the background. It doesn't ruin our relationships with them. So yeah.
And it was always the way that we were in our marriage as well. We have separate banking accounts just for that reason. We've always been of the opinion that the other person should have at least 3 to 6 months of personal funds and the ability to get themselves back to North America on the off chance that something happened. You should just have you should just have access to that much liquid funds personally that the other person has no control over.
Right. I see.
So it's not romantic, but
you have to cover all your bases. You got to make sure everything is taken care of. Anything, God forbid, were to happen.
Exactly.
All
and
the
then you don't have to worry
there.
about it anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Oh my gosh. So that's there. Actually, even in Canada, where same-sex marriage has been around since 2003. There's only two options.
Yeah, so if you, same-sex conception, if you do it through a doctor, it's really expensive to be queer. Just flat out, it's really expensive to be queer. There's all these extra, costs and things that come along with...
well, if you want to be a queer parent.
Certainly. So we ended up going a different route. On that one, we decided to go straight up cheapo DIY.
So Moira was conceived in my mother-in-law's bedroom, with my brother-in-law handed Skye a jam jar of sample, and Skye was like, "Thank you," and closed the door,
and he left.
And this happened 3 times in 4 days.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, I mean, you guys are actually quite lucky.
Yeah, lucky.
Very type A. I tracked everything for months because I knew I had 2 shots at this.
It involves luck, but it also involves the concept that Lauren had taken her basal body temperature for 6 months prior to this. So she'd been watching her period very, very closely.
Oh, just for years, though. I do that in general.
But still, regardless, this doesn't take away from the type A. So everything was incredibly closely monitored. She had researched it, every single little detail. How many times, how far apart.
And I tracked my ovulation for 3 months before this happened so that I knew when to expect my ovulation and what that would look like. And then we got there and I ovulated a week early. So we actually missed our first shot. We had 2 shots.
Yeah.
And the first time we got there, and I don't know, and it shouldn't have been the stress of travel, because it was a couple of weeks after we got in there. Like, I essentially got to Canada approximately when I had my period, and I ovulated a week early.
Totally blown right now.
It's like
and we had all these plans,
period
and I had to do all of this sudden math and be like, wait. So if this is happening now, that's when that should happen. I have to rewrite when we're visiting my family and like shift that entire trip a week earlier because we have to be in Canada for this week, probably.
Oh my gosh. So I know this is going to be like a bit personal, but
No.
I really want to know. So like, is there something, how would you actually be able to, like, how would you receive the sperm? Like, does it have
what was
to, like...
the delivery method?
Does it have to, like,
no,
shoot?
Okay, no, so I'm actually really proud of this. Because I did a lot of research and a lot of looking around to see what I was going to do.
We did a couple of different methods.
No, we did one method once because it was terrible.
Oh, that's true.
We did it once. So the month when I ovulated early, and it was like the end of my ovulation, I'm like, let's go ahead and try anyways, just maybe. And we all knew this wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
But we tried it out anyway.
It was a good trial run.
Right. So we did have one of the suggestions, which is a kind of large mouthed syringe, and you essentially put the sperm in a syringe, and then you insert that.
You just inject it effectively.
Okay.
So this is not what's called IUI, which is intrauterine insemination, because I did not want to deal with that, because you have to actually get up through and into the uterus, and that just freaked me out.
Yeah.
And people do that at home.
Really
People
invasive.
definitely do that at home. But I really didn't want to do that. So this is not that deep. So we did that, and it was terrible, and it was a mess, and it was not
uncomfortable and weird.
It was all kind of not working very well.
It was awkward enough at the beginning. We didn't need to add extra layers of awkward.
So the other suggestion. So the other suggestion on how to do this is to get what's called a cervical cap, which people use for their periods.
Yeah.
And you can get, and it's kind of like a menstrual cup, except that instead of being cup shaped, it's like a flat cap that's it's got a little bit extra material in it, so it's a very shallow cup. And it sits much higher inside, up against the uterus.
Oh,
and
okay.
So it's actually, I've used menstrual cups for 15 years, something like that.
Oh, wow.
So a long time. So I was very comfortable with the idea of like shoving something up in myself and hanging out. That wasn't a worry. But this definitely fit differently. It doesn't sit quite as low down.
But is it like longer, or it's still like
it's a totally different shape. It's not a cone at all. It's a totally different shape. It's like an oval shape.
Okay.
So it's kind of
shallow,
and it's shallow, but but for being so shallow, because it is so much bigger around, it's like this. It actually holds more liquid.
Oh, okay, so it's like about 2 or 3 inches long.
No, it's not. No.
No, it's a good 2 inches long.
2 inches.
It's a good 2 inches long.
Wait.
We're talking about the pink one, yeah?
Which
long,
direction
not
is
deep?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Not deep.
It's an oval, right?
Oval. Yeah. Yes, it's about 2 inches from one end of the oval to the other.
Oh,
and then the bottom part is very, very soft.
I see.
It's not firm at all like a menstrual cup would be.
Oh, okay.
So they have them that are disposable, and then there are some companies that have started making ones that are reusable as menstrual products. These are all meant to be menstrual products.
So this is totally DIY. Like, you guys
totally DIY.
thought about, why don't I just try to use this as my sperm donor?
There are some people who have used menstrual cups before, and this just sounded like it would make a lot more sense because it would sit higher up against my uterus, which was the goal anyway.
Right.
And it sounded a lot more comfortable for a point of time when I'm not
hours and hours to even find
Don't give me any credit.
this kind of a tool.
That's it. It's a really comfortable menstrual cup. And it's real comfy. I suggest this thing all the time because I used it as a menstrual cup once because then I got pregnant. And then afterward it didn't sit the same way.
Right.
So it doesn't sit in my body the same way.
God.
After giving birth, it didn't do the same thing, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I only used it once. But it was comfy.
That is so funny.
But it was very comfortable. I really like it. But yeah, so that was our delivery method, was to essentially just put the sperm in the bottom of that and insert that up against my uterus. And then I wore it for like 8 hours.
Oh. Okay. You just wore it for 8 hours, and then like a week later, your pregnancy test
I wore it for 8 hours 3 times, and the day we flew back to Taiwan was the day that I took a pregnancy test. Because that was, 11 days out or something, whatever it was. So it
still would have been early, but...
So you guys actually only had a 2-week window to get this done, right? Did you say you guys...
We were back for 2 months.
Oh, for 2 months,
because the first one was...
it didn't work.
Didn't work because I ovulated so early.
Right.
We had like maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was a really short time period.
It was real close.
We had 1 shot, and I had like all of my math figured out. I was like, it should be this should be these days, this time. We want like a 36-hour gap between, because that's about how long you need for things to actually like refresh properly. Mm-hmm. And then like when I knew I was getting close to my ovulation, I'm like sending messages to my brother-in-law, my sister, like, okay, so this is what I need from you. Can you come this time? Are these available times for you? Can you do this? And he's like,
luckily my brother's self-employed, so it was a lot easier.
Oh, okay. That's amazing.
It was actually really funny. The morning that Lauren like took an ovulation test and it turned out positive, we messaged my brother and we're like, can you come? It's starting. He's like, I'll be there at 11.
Nice.
Really
I mean,
nice.
that's
they were
great.
incredible.
I mean, he's all gung-ho for you guys, and
Yes.
that's amazing, the support that you guys have. So tell us, what is the favorite thing about Moira's conception?
So my favorite story about that is that the night that we are absolutely convinced was the night that I actually conceived her. The next morning, the downstairs neighbor, because my mother-in-law lives in an apartment building, the downstairs neighbors came up and said, I'm so sorry if things were noisy last night, if you heard anything. My mother-in-law was like, what? No, everything's fine. They're like, oh yeah, no, my wife had her baby in the living room last night. They had a home birth. And so the night that we conceived Moira, the downstairs neighbors were having a baby. And to top it all off, they named their baby Felix, which in Latin means lucky.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's so cute.
Yeah, it was really neat.
So I just thought of it as like this little
Moira sign.
You know, downstairs neighbor is like a little lucky charm for us.
Okay.
Prepared.
So little helmet girl goes. Okay.
Anyways, her face.
Yeah, I think I just learned so much today. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
And we've got to hang out more often. Those two just love each other already.
Absolutely, yeah. They're having a great time. Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yay. All right, thank you. Okay, that's all we have for today. Make sure you follow us on IG and Facebook. And comment, like, share, tell us what you think. And see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right, now for the kids segment. All right, girls, come on. Get up. Do your interview.